Okay then, it's another live chat time. Well, live video time. Actually, the previous ones haven't really been chats, but I'm hoping this one will be. There's your paper. So this one is a complete and utter surprise. Nobody knew I was doing this. I haven't told anybody on Facebook, Instagram, or anywhere else. Hi, somebody here, that's great. Yeah, so I'll just, 10 people already. Wonderful, thank you very much for joining me. So, this isn't an unannounced thing, but I just thought it'd be nice to kind of fill you in on what's been going on recently and answer some questions live. So the plan is for me to, I've got some questions here already. I'm going to answer those first, and then once I've gone through those, then we can have a live chat and you can ask me things and I'll answer them for you here and now. So there we are. Right, let me start off with these questions. So these questions are from our patrons. We've been asking for these for months, and we've kind of been intending to do a live video and we've never really got around to it, and I'm just thinking that I've got to do it, so I'm doing it now. So first of all, we have a question from Greg, and I've got a specific way to say where Greg is from. This question is from Greg from Annapolis, where we hope to visit one day, because Greg wants to meet us and he'd love us to go and visit him there, so hopefully we will one day. So the first question there is, you mentioned sailing south. Where to, and what are the longer term plans? Are you planning on living on the boat for a while, or have you decided that it is too complicated with Emma? Okay, Greg, that's a good question. Sailing south, we are going to the Med, so that is still the plan. I am now in Belgium, which I'll come to in a minute. We're going to talk about the solo sail here in a moment. I'm currently in Belgium, and oh great, hi guys. Hi Cornelis, shout hi. Brilliant. So yeah, answering this question, we are going to the Mediterranean, and we're going to be doing that next year. So we are now in a place in Belgium which will allow us access to the canals, and we're actually going to be going into the Belgian canals first. Drop the mast first, of course, then we're going to the Belgian canals, and then we're going to work our way down through Belgium into France, and then all the way through France, all the way down to the Mediterranean, and we'll come out somewhere near Marseille. So it's going to be a really great trip. The three of us are going to do that next year, and we're very excited to do that. So thank you for the question, Greg. Martin asked, it'd be interesting to hear how you found Britaly and what you looked for to find a boat with enough flaws to reduce the price, but nothing serious enough to make her uneconomical to refit. Another good question. Well, actually, we had a bit of a head start there. We used to be boat dealers. So we've kind of, we've had our eyes on the market for boats for years and years now. We kind of know a good deal when we see one. This boat was really cheap. It was a kind of very particular sail, but it was a really good deal. Now, deals on boats. There are boats out there that you can have for free. There are boats even of this size. You can have a 30-foot boat, 35-foot boat gifted to you, maybe even 40-foot boat. But the problem with that is sometimes you can get a good deal out of that too. There are lots of different circumstances in life that might make people want to give away a boat, and for some people a boat is nothing but a burden. But the question is this: if you're being gifted a 40-foot boat, how much would it be worth when you finished the refitting of the boat? And if the answer is $50,000, then the next question is, how much is it going to cost me to get it to the stage where it's worth $50,000? And if the answer to that is, as it often is, $90,000, then that's not a good deal. It's not, it may be on the face value, it might be the best deal ever. Actually, it's not, because you'll spend a long time of your life and you'll spend a lot of money and you won't ever get all that money back, because things on boats can be very expensive. So it depends. Some boats that are very, very cheap can be a great deal and you can make money on them. You literally can make money on boats. That's not a fallacy. We've owned over a dozen. We've bought over a dozen used boats now, and we've never sold one for less than we paid for it. So it can be done, but you've got to be very careful when you're buying. And like anything in life, whether it be a boat or a car or a house, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. You have to make sure you're getting a good deal when you buy, because otherwise you're probably not going to get a good kind of return out of it. So the next one, Greg asked, any plans to do an offshore passage? Well, Greg, not really. This for me has been a huge challenge, sailing from the UK to Belgium. Hi Tibor. Sailing from the UK to Belgium has been an enormous challenge for me. Solo sailing, oh my goodness me, it's really enjoyable, but it's so much harder than you might first imagine. There's just so much to do all the time, constantly. It's crazy. So I've just challenged myself enough for now. Looking forward to a nice pootle through the canals, myself, Rosella and Emma, and yeah, then we'll be sailing again when we get to the Med. Leo asked, what makes your boat comfy? Where is your spot on the boat? What part did you add that makes it even better? Oh, thanks for the comments, guys. Hi. Brazil as well. Wow, far away. So yeah, what makes the boat comfy? It's just generally a really comfy boat. I'm very happy with the inside of this boat. It's really lovely. Why did we not go into the canals at Calais? I'll come back to that. In a minute. I'm just going to answer the question first. I will come back to that. So what makes the boat comfy? Is it comfy in itself? Where is your spot on the boat? To be honest with you, we don't really have time to sit down. We've been so busy since we bought this boat. Every time we're on the boat, we're always working very, very hard, refitting the boat, making videos. It's just so I've not really sat down for very long. I mean, of course we do sit down, but it's not like we get time to lounge around. Si parlo italiano. Yes. Comfort. What did we add that makes it even better? Our washing machine is probably the best thing. The washing machine is probably the best thing that we've added. It's a very simple twin tub, like for RVs. We're going to do a video about it, but it just makes life super easy. That's really good. And then alongside that, the inverter which powers. Yes, we're going to the Med next year. The inverter which powers the washing machine. That allows us to charge all sorts of things as well, and run the washing machine. And the solar panels charge the batteries to allow us to do all those things without kind of being plugged into shore power. So we can be on the hook now for weeks on end, and we've got our power covered. We're off grid. Okay, I think that's that one. Cornelis, who is here, asked how to deal with sacrificial anodes, galvanic isolation, RCD. They're kind of three different things, of course. Sacrificial anodes, yeah, just check them often and change them when they're becoming wasted. So I've been under our boat. I was in England. I dived in the water to have a look at our boat before I started this trip. That was nice, and the anode is actually surprisingly not really badly wasted. So that will be changed while we're being hauled out now, but it lasted quite well. Galvanic isolation. We are going to fit a galvanic isolator. I actually made one of those for our previous boat from diodes, but I'm gonna buy one this time and fit that. That's important. If somebody doesn't know what that is, basically, if you're plugged into the shore power in a marina, if the boat next to you doesn't have any sacrificial anodes fitted, then, and this is not a fault condition, it's designed to do this. You are connected. The earth on your boat is connected to the earth on the other boat through the shore power line, and if he doesn't have any anodes and you do, then you become his anode as well. So a galvanic isolator just puts in a little bit. It uses diodes to put in a kind of resistance in. It's not resistance, but it takes more voltage to bypass the galvanic isolator than can be created in a galvanic cell between anodes and seawater and stuff like that. So basically, if you fit one of those, you don't have to worry about your anodes being depleted by other people's boats. So that's the end of our patrons' questions. Thank you very much for those, guys. So I'll now pass on to your questions live. So somebody asked me, why didn't I go into the canals at Calais? Well, that's a good question. First of all, we are spending some time on the hard first. So we wanted to find a good place to keep the boat on the hard. And this was kind of the best place that we looked at in terms of lots of different considerations, price, and you know, that was the main one. But also what is here in this area, and this is a beautiful place. I'm really surprised at how gorgeous it is. So we're very much looking forward to spending some time here too. There we are. Another question: do you have AIS? Yes, we do. I actually spent a lot of time preparing the boat before going single-handed sailing. Yeah, I'll reply to that as well. So preparing the boat for going single-handed sailing, what did I do? Well, lots of jobs, but I had to redo a priority list. You know, it's constantly evolving, the priority list on the boat. So I replaced the navigation light at the stern. For example, I ran a spare main halyard because we've got in-mast roller reefing furling on the mainsail. And as a result of that, if you've got a problem with the mainsail when you've already got it bent on, then you don't have a halyard because the halyard is up at the top of the sail. So if your mainsail gets stuck, and hopefully this is never going to happen, but it's a possibility, so you have to kind of preempt what might go wrong and how you might deal with it. So if you're on your own, you need to be able to go up the mast, and I can go up the mast on my own. I did that over the course of a couple of days while I was getting the boat ready to run the spare mainsail halyard. So I did that, and lots of the things that I don't remember now really, just prepping the boat for this solo sail. The AIS, we've got a VHF radio, which is also an AIS receiver. It's not a transmitter. Oh wow. Thank you very much, Senator Perry. If you've got a question, send me a question, I'll answer that next. So yeah, our VHF, hi Greg, our VHF has AIS receiver built into it, which is really handy because you don't even need an external and a separate antenna. It just runs off your VHF antenna, so you've got VHF receiver, and that was extremely useful on this trip. I'll kind of talk you through my trip in a minute, but my solo sailing trip from the UK to Belgium. But okay, thank you very much indeed. That's great, very kind. So VHF, what was I talking about there? Yeah, oh yeah, the AIS was extremely, hi David, the AIS was extremely useful on this trip because I left an anchorage about 4 in the morning, set off in the dark, and then I was in the shipping lanes. It was only just getting light as I was going into the shipping lanes. And basically the AIS receiver that I had was then letting me know if I was on a collision course with the ships that were there. And the English Channel, I googled it tonight, and according to Wikipedia, it is the busiest shipping lane in the world. So I know there are lots of other busy places in the world too, but apparently this is the busiest place. So the traffic movements there are mental. And yeah, I did have to alter my speed a couple of times to avoid potential collision situations. And the AIS, you know, when you especially when it's not very light, the AIS really helps with that to let me know that there was a possibility of a collision, and therefore allowed me to take avoiding action before that became a real issue. Somebody asked there, why did you go for receiver only? Price, you know, basically we got a VHF with GPS built in there and AIS, and it's obviously a DSC VHF, and it was just, I don't remember the price, but it was a really good deal. So yeah, I know that's good, they can see you too, but what I did though was I got a Echo Max 230, which is a really good radar reflector, and I hoisted that on the offer spreader there. So with that you get a massive return on the radar, and with putting it on the spreader as opposed to putting it on the mast, you don't have a mast shadow either, so 360 degree coverage to get you on radar. And also the way I was approaching this was, it was my job in the TSS, it was my job to stay out of their way. So it's not as if, it's a different situation if you're like crossing the Atlantic and you're going to sleep, you know, when you're waking up and doing you're looking around and making sure there are no Belgium is beautiful. Yeah, so if you're going to sleep and waking up and then checking around for ships, then that is a different situation, you know. That would be extremely beneficial to have a transmitter as well. And also the Echo Max make another kind of radar reflector, which is kind of, it's a responsive one that, so it consumes very little electricity, but it connects to your battery, and then whenever that detects a radar signal, it actually transmits radar, and that gives them a massive boost, and that's got a really large range. So yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's, somebody's just commented there. The big boats can turn off the Class B AIS as well, and I believe some of them do that. So just because you've got an AIS transmitter doesn't mean that you're safe. So, you know, I was prepared to take on the responsibility myself, but like I say, it was very useful to have them on AIS because it allowed me to know if we were on a collision course or not. And that's not always easy to tell. You know, you can take a bearing and stuff like that, but it's not easy. And when you're solo and you've got lots of things to do already, it's anything that makes your life easier is definitely a good idea. So yeah, let me talk you through my trip. I started off in Gillingham, and passage planning. Oh, right. Yeah, okay. No, okay, yeah, no, I didn't split the VHF. It just comes off your normal VHF. It takes its AIS signal straight from the VHF aerial, so you don't need to do anything extra. It's very handy. In fact, installation was very, very easy. So what happened was, I planned to leave at 10 in the morning from Gillingham, and what actually happened was I couldn't. I locked out on time, got onto the river on time, and then while I was faffing around with the radar, and I had my hands in the electrical panel, and I managed to break something. So then I was on the pontoon on the fuel dock on a falling tide, and it was there was a potential for me to go aground there as well. So I was in a rush to try and get my gear working, because it was actually the depth that was broken, the depth and the wind and stuff that were essential for me to do this trip. So I had to fix that. And anyway, I did manage to do it. I got it all working again. In fact, I bailed from the pontoon and I went over to an anchor over the other side of the river, because I was in danger of grounding out. It was a mud bottom, so it wouldn't have really done anything, but I literally would have been stuck in the mud, so I didn't want to do that. Excuse me a sec. It's freezing. So I fixed that out on the anchorage on the river, and then like a weather front came through, about 29 knots and rain. So I thought, well, I'm not setting off now, I'll just let that pass. That passed, and then I left, but it was actually about 6 o'clock in the evening, so it was almost getting dark, because it's October, obviously. The days are short now, which kind of limits what I could do in a day. But I set off and I thought, well, just go for it. Night sail as your first solo sail, that'll be all right, won't it? That was a mistake, to be perfectly honest with you. You'll see in the videos, but I kind of scared myself a little bit, in the sense that I had the mainsail out for the first time ever, and the genoa out, and everything was okay. You know, I was sailing on the river. It was about 18 knots, something like that, and then within a couple of minutes it blew up to about 28 knots. And yeah, I had all the sails out still, so I had to get them away. There was very limited room to manoeuvre on the river. It was pitch black. I couldn't see even the buoys, even when they were like 30 meters away. It was really dark. I didn't really know that section of river before, so it was all a bit stressful, really, to be honest. But do you know what? I'm really glad that happened, because it taught me a very valuable lesson at the start of the trip. So that kind of made me modify my plans for the whole rest of the time that I was sailing. So that was a great thing to happen. Anyway, I got it all sorted, and I then went into an anchorage called Sharfleet Creek, which I'd never been to before, and which I didn't see even when I got there, because it was pitch black. So I got there and anchored, and I could hear that the shore was close by, and obviously I could see it on GPS that it was close by, but I didn't actually see it until the morning when I woke up, and then I was like, all right, that's the land. So that was the first night of the trip. Then the following day, I left with my kind of renewed battle plan, you know, taking it easy. And thank you very much, Ricky, that's very kind, mate. I then left the anchorage and I went down the swale, which is, if you look on the chart, that's a really interesting place. But it's hi Claire, that's my sister. Hi. That's a very interesting place. It's a tidal waterway. It looks like a river, but it's not a river, it's just tidal, but it gets very, very shallow. And I went through there on low tide, which again, you'll see this in the video, but it was quite exciting. You know, the depth was getting lower and lower and lower as I went, and I was feeling my way through, and it got quite close really at one point. But I don't want to ruin the videos for you, so I'm just going to say, you know, brief outlines. Then I anchored at Hearty Ferry, which is an anchorage off the Swale. So it's an island, the Isle of Sheppey off Kent. And there's an anchorage there called Hearty Ferry. I stayed there overnight. Brilliant anchorage, really comfortable, lots of room. Then I left the following day and went to Ramsgate. That was when I did the live video of the anchor, and that was really funny because lifting anchor now with my little the Britaly chain hook that I made, it's really easy. It's absolutely really easy. Now unfortunately when I did that live video it wasn't easy because I was doing a live video and I was single-handed a boat and I was trying to show you what I was doing, so it was all a bit manic and it looked 50 times harder than it is. So what I have been doing the rest of the trip is what I did in a previous video. I'll set the boat up in the direction it wants to go, stick the autopilot on and just go ahead really gently, and then lifting the chain, it's a piece of cake, and that chain hook just holds it for you. It makes it dead easy. It's brilliant. I'm very happy with that. So I left Hearty Ferry, went to Ramsgate. I arrived there. I was in a rush because there was bad weather forecast, a force 9 severe gale forecast, so I had to get in sharpish. Got into Ramsgate. I was tied up there for 2 nights. It was a very nice place. I had a quick look around, but it was very bouncy in there because of the waves outside. It's not the most comfortable places. Now I anchored on the I moored up on the breakwater, which was like the easiest place to get to, but the most bumpy part of the whole marina, so that was fine. But after a couple of nights of that I couldn't really hack it anymore, so I left Ramsgate and I went to off an anchorage off Deal Pier, which is the Goodwin Sands, which is like a historic area. There's a whole area of sandbanks, and at one point there were 800 ships recorded as being anchored in that area, like in the age of sail. It was a very common place for ships to go and drop anchor and wait for fair tides and weather to get to where they wanted to go, and it was also the scene of quite a few battles. So there's loads of wrecks around there. Anyway, so I went to Deal and anchored about 150 metres off the end of Deal Pier, and it was funny because I got there at night. I got there when it was just getting dark, and it kind of, I don't think many people really do that, anchoring off Deal Pier. Oh, my battery's running out, flipping heck. I don't think many people do that, so I had visions of somebody phoning the Coast Guard saying, oh, there's a sailing boat in trouble. But anyway, I anchored there. I had a nightmare with my SD. I was transferring SD cards, and the external hard drive that I had, it basically got stuck, and I thought I was going to lose a lot of footage. In the end I got it sorted, but at the end of that it was 12:30 at night, so I got to bed at 12:30. But because there was another force 9 severe gale forecast for the day after, I had that tiny little window to get to France, so I actually left. I went to bed at midnight and I woke up at 3:30 to get everything ready and set off. I set off about 4 in the morning in the dark. So I was you know, in that area of the sandbanks, setting off in the dark. It was wind over tide, about 20 odd knots wind over tide. So and I knew this from a passage plan. I spent loads of time passage planning on this trip, like a couple of hours every night. Yeah, no, I was looking after myself, Greg. I had to get back because I am desperate to see Rosella and Emma. I've been away from them for a month and that's driving me nuts. I need to be at home, so I had to get my skates on to get across, and I had to pick the weather windows to be safe. And I've actually done it in lots of little short legs here, because if I'd have done longer trips I'd have been exposing myself to bad weather. So I'm with you. So yeah, I left early in the morning, wind over tide, big waves, and I said to myself, because I'd done this in my passage plan, I knew it was going to be wind over tide from the forecast. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable. So what I said in the video as well was, I'm not setting out to cross the channel today. I'm not going to beat the channel. I'm going to attempt to cross the channel today, and if I have to turn around and come back, then I'll do that. You know, you don't mess around with the sea, and the same with mountains as well. In the past, I nearly got to the summit of a mountain in northern Norway once with my best mate at the time, and we binned it and we turned around and came back, and we were only a few hundred meters from the summit. And if I hadn't have done that, it was like I was kind of in charge at the time, because I had more experience in mountain stuff than he did. And if I hadn't have turned us around then when we did and gone back down, he would have potentially lost some toes, because it was like -26 and he had frost nip when we got down. That may have been a lot worse if we hadn't have done that. So with things like this, there's no shame in turning back, so I was prepared to do that. But the boat handled the waves beautifully. It's a great boat. We've got such a deep relationship now, the two of us. It's been a great trip for that. And yeah, I got across the channel. I was there dead early. I was actually I was in Calais at about, I don't really remember, but maybe around midday, something like that. And then I got a message from the captain of the Spirit of Britain, a big massive ferry, on Facebook. He'd seen me on a mooring buoy. He must have heard me on the VHF or something, to the port control. And he said, "Are you on the mooring buoy? I'm moored beside you in the Spirit of Britain." That's a massive ship. It's like 1,000 cars ferry. So that was cool. I stayed on a mooring buoy in Calais, and then as soon as I had a window, which was the next day, Calais to Dunkirk. And I've been recording all the boat handling and stuff as well. So you'll see how that went in the videos, but it's actually, I was happy with how it went, really, to be honest. So Dunkirk, I spent one night there. The following day I left and I came to Newport, so that's where I am now, Newport in Belgium. It's beautiful. It's a really, really nice place. This is where we're getting hauled out. This is where the boat is going to be for the next few months, and then we're going to come back next year, the three of us, and we are going to Highport. You'll hear it in the start of this video. I covered that. Dunkirk was actually very nice. The marina was very pretty, and I met a nice bloke there who was living on his boat in the marina there. So it was a really nice place, and I didn't have a chance to walk into the town. It sounds a bit silly, but it sounded like a really nice place. The atmosphere of like the church bells and stuff, it sounded lovely. But Newport here is beautiful. So there we are. It wasn't that big a journey, but for me it was a huge challenge. Solo sailing is really, really very, very challenging, you know, compared to sailing with just one other person. Even if that other person isn't expert, it makes a big difference, you know. Just, oh, can you hold the helm, or can you grab this, or can you put that line on that cleat, you know, little things like that you can't do anymore. It just makes things a little bit more challenging. So yeah, that was the trip. So I'll pass over to you guys now that you're here live. I don't have much battery left, so I don't know how long this is gonna last, but the floor is open to questions, so please fire away with your questions and I'll try and answer them for you. Any questions? Fire away. The floor is open. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you about the safety. Navigation, yeah, okay, thank you. Motoring, yeah, I did. I motor sailed across the channel, actually. Yeah, there is a boat show here the weekend. They're setting up for it. So trying to get them comments there. Did they disappear? I think they've disappeared now. I don't know if I can read them again. IMAX gear, that's a good question. Thank you, yeah. Sleep deprived, no. Right, okay, I'll just have to try and take them one at a time. IMAX gear, yeah, that's a good question. I think I'll do a video on that gear. It is from Amazon. It was about 70 quid for the entire set of oilskins, you know, top and bottoms, like proper salopettes that come up to about here, with like dunga, you know, like the whatever you call these things that go over your shoulders to keep them up. And it's very good gear, very, very good gear. It's not sailing gear, it's fishing gear. So, you know, a lot of the time when you buy anything for sailing, it costs 4 times more than it should. Whereas if you Google fishing gear, it's the same, it does the same job, but it's not expensive. So it's really, really, I'm very happy with that. Other questions there? I'm trying to remember what the questions were. They all come through at once, and then there's none, and then they all come through at once, and I don't remember them. Oh, navigation. I've got a Samsung, Samsung tablet, which was about 150 quid from Argos in the UK, and I did start playing around with, what's it called? Oh God, what's it called? A navigation program that is totally blank in my mind right now. Anyway, Navionics is what I was actually using in the end, because I've used that in the past and I found it very good. Especially now, I don't know if this is a new thing, but they've now got tidal information as well. And for this part of the world, you know, you've got 2 knot plus currents to deal with all the time. So that's very important for your passage plans, to know when to leave and all the rest of it. So I actually made a video on passage planning for one of the trips. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the hood's a lifesaver, isn't it, when it's pouring down and windy? Yeah, it's very good gear. I did make a video on passage planning. I just basically took you through an entire one of my passage plans, and I showed you how I do it. Not because I'm an expert, because I'm not. I'm a beginner. You know, this is my first ever solo sailing trip. So all the things that I share in the videos are shared from the point of view that this is how I'm doing it. It appears to be working for me. You know, just take what you want from that. And also, in all our videos, we get such intelligent comments from people. You know, there's a lot of experience out there, and the comments that we get on our videos really add to our channel massively. So thank you for anyone who comments and you know, gets involved in the discussion here, because it really is. Red diesel, yeah, I did look into that. I looked on the REA website. Basically, I'm not going to answer that one. Basically, if you pay the VAT on the last load of fuel that you do, so before I left, I filled up at Chillingham Marina, and I paid, like, voluntarily paid the full VAT. Because we've got diesel heating on the boat, so in theory we we could have paid less VAT, but I paid 20% VAT, and I got them to record that on an invoice. So I've got that now as proof that I've paid the VAT on the fuel that's on the boat now. So that was my way of dealing with the red diesel thing in Belgium. Any more questions? This is a really pretty place. I've only been into town yesterday for a couple of hours, and it was raining, but it was really pretty, really, seriously. I've got myself a little folding bike as well from Argos again. That's been a lifesaver on this trip. No leaks at all. Q flag, you don't need to fly a Q flag in the EU. I flew the French courtesy flag, and then when I crossed the border into Belgium, I flew the Belgian courtesy flag. Booking in, paperwork, nothing. Piece of cake. There's nothing to do. How many hours did it take across the channel? Like I say, it was a short trip. I hoofed it across as fast as I could. Yeah, I took photos of the anchor hook when I was making it, so I can put a PDF together, and I'll put that in our treasure chest on Patreon, which you can get access there for $3. So it's like peanuts, you know, but it repays me for my time for doing things like that. Yeah. So yeah, more questions? My battery may die at any moment. No, don't. How do you dock more yourself? Now that's actually gone really well. I've been very pleased with that. And you'll see this in the video. But once I was entering Ramsgate, and it was really quite lumpy, and I was messing around while I was doing all sorts of things at once. I was messing around also making myself a bow fender, because I wanted to buy one, and the channelry that I went into didn't have one. So I was trying to make myself a bow fender from a big hose. You'll see it all in the video. And what I was planning on doing is a Patrick Lane. He's got a really good channel. He's single hands, and he goes in with his bow and pushes up against the pontoon, and then you can use the motor to control your stern. I was going to try doing that, but because I didn't really have a bow fender set up for it, I instead used springs from the midship cleats, which on this boat we don't actually have midship cleats, which is a bit of a bummer. But as always, I've got a cheap, simple solution to that. I'll show you it now. I don't know if you can see this. It's just a carabiner. Got them on Amazon. You can buy midship cleats which clamp onto your tow rails. They're about 200 odd quid. I got those carabiners. I got 3 of them. I probably should have got 4 actually. They're really useful. They're about 3 quid each, and they're 2,500 kilogram rated. So they're galvanized steel, but I've been using them for months now. There's no corrosion or anything on them at all yet, so that works really well. So I can use, yeah, midship cleat. Exactly. That's exactly what I was doing. That's a good question. I'll come to that in a minute. So yeah, with these carabiners, you can have cleats anywhere on your deck that you want. You just clip it into the tow rail wherever you want it, and that's been superb. So yeah, I've been getting a line on the midship, and then as soon as you just lasso that onto a cleat, then you can control the boat, you know, with the engine. You can do whatever you want then, and you're good to go. So that's been I've been very happy with how the mooring's been going, actually, really happy. Now then, somebody asked why didn't I make the frame out of aluminium. I was tempted to do that. I did look into that. Aluminium is a very good material, actually, engineering wise. It's very strong, lightweight. I've worked with it a lot in the past on aircraft as well. But yeah, I went for stainless steel in the end, because it just looks a little bit more traditional, you know. You could do something like this with aluminium, and you can buy kind of clamps for aluminium, which would make it quite easy too. But then you've got, you know, it's the aesthetics of it. I think this looks good. That's only my personal opinion. Some people might think it's awful, but great. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the comment. So any more questions, guys? It's going to be time for me to video call Rosella and Emma soon. Do you call up marinas in English on the VHF? Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. But I try and throw my awful French. When I got to Belgium, I actually just phoned up. I was again, this is in the video. I was just hanging off in the river, just holding my stern into the wind, and I was on the phone. Free Wi-Fi? No, it's not. This is a 3 internet deal that we've got. That's very, very good. This has made my life so much easier over the past weeks. I've only got 10% of battery. I've only got 10% of battery now, guys. Waterproofs. They're called IMAX Thermo. Like I say, I think I paid about 70 quid for the full set, which is just superb. The value is just amazing. That's about 100. No, not even $100. That's about $90 at today's exchange rate. So superb. Oh wow, super chat. VX Nova, do you have a question for us? By the way, guys, the floor's open. Before my battery dies, you can ask anything you want. Anything you want, like us, our lives, you know, anything you want. Just go for it. I'll try and answer as best I can. Just bought the IMAX on Amazon already. Recommendation. Nice one. I'll when I finish this video and I get the time, I'll put an affiliate link in the description as well. So if anybody else wants to check it out through that, we might get a little teeny weeny like commission, a wee one. Thank you. Yeah, solo sailing, it's brilliant. I've absolutely loved it. I've missed Rosella and Emma absolutely terribly, like a hole in the heart. It's been awful. That side of it's been very, very difficult, but the challenge of doing something on your own. I've done a lot of stuff in the mountains on my own in the past, and I really enjoy it. And it's very different doing something just with one extra person and doing something with someone else. It's a very different experience, and you get a lot of satisfaction. You know, it's great for self-belief and stuff. So how did I get rest? I was anchoring wherever possible. So yeah, set off. I've covered this earlier in the video, but I set off from Gillingham, and I'm now in Belgium, Newport. So overall, it's been about 130 odd miles or something. So it's not a big distance, but anybody who's sailed in this part of the world, I think is a very, very challenging place to sail, especially in October. The wind and the tide and the shipping lanes. It's been very challenging. To be honest, are you going to Christmas dinner? I think we will be, Claire. The Caribbean. Oh, good. You're very welcome, Ivor. Caribbean. To be honest, the Caribbean, not at the moment. It's not on our radar at the moment. Our plans are, at the moment, to go down to the Med, and then thank you, and then keep the boat in the Med and move around to different places. So our life, we both work and we have other things going on in our life. So our plan is to spend, in fact, this is coming back to Greg's question from earlier. I didn't really answer that, did I? Sorry, Greg. So yeah, what we plan on doing is spending periods of the year on the boat and then periods of the year on land. And there are different reasons for that. First of all, Rosella and I were very close to our families, both in the UK and Italy. So for us to go away and disappear and only get to see them for, you know, a week or two, a year or something, that's not good enough for us. You know, we want Emma to grow up with the grandparents. I have spent, since I was 17 years old, I moved away to join the RAF, the Royal Air Force. I spent years away from home, and I've been working offshore since I left there, and I've spent a lot of time away from my loved ones. You know, it's 21 years now I've been doing that. I've been spending time away from my loved ones. And this channel and all the other things that we're doing in life, we're really working hard to transition away from my offshore work into other ways of making money. So, you know, this channel is part of that. I've got some other things going on, and we're just constantly working. Like, we work 7 days a week, constantly. I'm either, obviously, on the boat I'm making videos, which, to be honest, is I say it's easy. The filming the videos is easy. It's not when you're single-handing, because you've already got a million things to do and you're messing around with cameras and mobile phones and GoPros and stuff. So like when I was mooring the boat a day or two ago, whenever it was, I had a mobile phone in my hand, a GoPro on the back and the camera on the boom, and I was boat handling and trying to show you what I was doing at the same time. So it's like juggle. It's not easy in that respect, but the recording is easy. The editing is the killer. I've got probably about a terabyte now of footage. I've probably got about a terabyte of footage to go through for the past like year, even going back more than a year. Before Emma was born, we still got videos to edit from when Rosella was 8 months pregnant. We were sailing right then. I've still got them to edit because our life is so busy and it takes such a long time that it's just really, really difficult to do that. So the plan is to do, like, for example, in the summer, we can do a 4-month spell on the boat. And for example, we come out in Marseille, in 4 months, you can go anywhere in the Med you want. You just pick a place and you go there. And you travel around, you can see the whole Med. There are thousands and thousands of islands to go to. I don't feel the need to go crossing oceans right now, you know. I think there's so much beauty closer to home. And you can then travel around, and then you can get hauled out somewhere new, stay there for a bit, and then the next time you come back to the boat, you can go somewhere different. You know, you can just if you wanted to, you could go all the way around the world doing that. 4 months, you can go across an ocean, go to the next place, get hauled out, go back to your life, earn some more money and all the rest of it, see the family, and then go back to the boat and then continue. You could keep doing that and go all the way around the world if you want to. But for now, we're just planning on staying in the Med. Any more questions? Did you have any desire to sail around the UK? Yeah, absolutely, I did. Yeah, I really did. It's in the video again. But when I was leaving Ramsgate, it kind of suddenly dawned on me that we were leaving the UK with a boat. And we had planned to go to London together, because that's where Rosella and I met, in a nightclub in London about 15 years ago. And it would have been lovely to go back there in the boat with our daughter. You know, it would have been like full circle. And I'm very sad to not have done that, but we just couldn't. And part of that is the videos. You know, if I wasn't spending so much time making videos and I was just concentrating on cracking on with the boat and everything, we would have got to go there. But the reality is that you know, we're concentrating on this because we think it's important for the future. West coast of Scotland, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been all over the shop. With the UK, I've travelled the UK loads because I was in the armed forces, and I moved around a lot, and I did a lot of adventurous training and stuff as well, and mountaineering and stuff like that, rugby, all sorts of different things. So the UK is beautiful, and I'm sorry that in our videos we've not really I'll come to that, Ray, just a minute. We've not really showed you like the most beautiful places in the UK at all. Like, Scotland is beautiful. The Lake District in the north of England, which is close to where I'm from, that is absolutely gorgeous. That's why I proposed to Rosella on the way up a mountain there. I popped the question there to her. That's a beautiful area. In fact, that's why our little mini company called Helvellyn Limited, that's me and Rosella, that's like our like tiny limited company. It's called Helvellyn Limited because the mountain that I proposed to Rosella on is called Helvellyn. Yeah, that's why I'm in that's why I'm in Belgium. That's another consideration of why I had a rush to be here, because of the B word. I'm not even going to say, you know, the B word, the political situation in the UK. This is a non-political channel. Please do not comment anything political. Do not say anything about politics, because people come to channels like this to get away from that. And I'm not going to give you any of my views whatsoever. I have feelings about this like everyone, but I'm not going to share them with you. And the way I think may be the complete opposite to what you think I think, or it may be what you think. I'm not giving it away. But the reality is that there's the potential for Brexit to happen at the end of this month, and part of the consideration was we jumped through some hoops to get proof of VAT status on this boat because it didn't have it when we bought it. We've got that. We got a T2L from the HMRC people, so that proves the VAT paid status of the boat. But had there been a no-deal Brexit with no agreement in place, then it was possible that we might have lost the VAT paid status on the boat if it had remained in the UK. So that was another reason for me bringing it across the channel. Any more questions? My battery may die imminently. So if this disappears, that's what happened. My battery died. Any more questions? Oh, I'll talk about safety a second, actually. So I've used jack lines for the first time ever on this trip. I ran some of this webbing. Oh, you got your cap, David. Excellent. There you go. One of these Sailing Britaly caps. David's just got his. There are two versions. This is Chris because that's mine, but there are two versions you can have. One says crew, Sailing Britaly crew on the back, and one says producer, and they get delivered anywhere in the world if you become a patron of ours at a certain level. So jack lines, I bought some of this. This is from an industrial supplier. It's a webbing. It's like a 3,000 or something kilogram breaking load, and I'll just put that between the cleats, between the bow and the stern. And then I clipped myself in. I had a kind of three hook harness thing on my life jacket, which is also a harness. And okay, Ray, I'll come back to you in a minute. And I was clipping into the jack lines. So somebody mentioned in my previous video about if you fall overboard, you get swept backwards. Yeah, I planned on that. If I did fall overboard, I would have got swept back to the aft cleat, and then that basically takes me, with the length of the tether, that took me to the stern of the boat, which is where we've got a boarding ladder which just folds down, and also just the back part of the boat anyway is just kind of, it's like a sugar scoop sort of shape, you know. It's very easy. It's a swim platform, so it would have been easy for me to pull myself up. I say easy, you know, if you're doing 6 knots and you're pulling yourself against that, it's not easy, but I'd have been able to do it. I'm confident I would have been able to do it. So that was a thing, something I considered, and I decided to do that. I also had a PLB attached to my life jacket, which is a personal locator beacon. With that, if you open it and press a button, that sends a signal to satellites which triangulate your position, and it alerts the Coast Guard as to where you are in that precise moment. It sends them an alert, like a distress call. So then they would send out ships, helicopters, whatever, to come and get you. And also it's got a locator beacon, I think it's 101 megahertz or something, that then when they arrive there, the teams, they can search with a kind of homing beacon, and it tells them where you are, so they can come and get you. So that was clipped on me at all times. So, you know, that's a couple of £100 for that, and it's a McMurdo Fast Find 200 or something, or 220, something like that, and the battery lasts 6 years. So, but for me, that's such good peace of mind. I think that was worth doing. How long did it take me? I'm answering Ray's question now. How long did it take me compared to what I planned? Much longer. Much longer. I talked about this earlier in this video. 121.5, thank you, Martin, megahertz. Yeah, PLB, definitely it's worth the money. You know, there are some things that I like saving money on, like the cleats there. Instead of paying £200, I'll pay £300 for a carabiner, but that's because it'll do the job just as well. I'm not gonna save money on something like a PLB. I think it's such a worthy investment. You know, I mean, much more so than flares. These days, I would rather, if I had to choose between flares or a PLB, I'd go for a PLB, absolutely, with a 6-year battery, definitely, because they know where you are immediately, and they can come and find you. Sailing sites for crew, etc. I've made another video. I keep talking about videos that I've made, but I've not had a chance to edit yet. I'll come back to you shortly on that one. So getting into sailing, the best way for me, I think, is to go and join a sailing club, or get involved in a sailing club, or just show your face at your local marina. You don't have to have a boat to go sailing. You absolutely don't. Gillingham, where I was until recently, that's a perfect example. You always see guys going out on the boat, and I say guys, you know, I'm trying not to generalize too much, but generally they were mostly guys going out on the boats on their own, and a lot of them were older gentlemen. So some of these people are really very experienced, and some of them are getting quite advanced in years. You know, they might be 80 years old and they're going out sailing on their own, and they would often ask people in the marina, do you want to come sailing? So you've got two people with two boats in a marina, and they're both going sailing on the same boat, and that happens all the time, everywhere. So all you need to do is just go down to a marina, make yourself known, speak to people, let people know that you're willing to learn and that you're willing to listen, and yeah, forces 30 years. Yeah, I love my time in the forces. It was fantastic. But then I met Rosella, so I had to leave, didn't I? Yeah, so what was I saying there? Yeah, if you want to go sailing, just go and show your face at your local sailing club or your local marina, and you will go sailing for free. And you also get the benefit, if you're going sailing with someone who's 80 years old, they might have been sailing for 40 years. You know, you're going to learn so much more from them. Passage planning, yeah. No, I use 4 knots for my passage plan. 4 knots boat speed. Part of that is because, you know, you've got 2 knot currents to consider as well. But I just use 4 knots for my passage plan because... Okay, I'll answer that shortly. 4 knots because the thing is, you can, if you use 6 knots for your passage plan, that can be very stressful, I think. It is for me anyway, because I'm not an expert sailor. But the thing is, if you're struggling to meet your time scale, you know, you can't necessarily always speed up. You have to do what the wind and the weather and everything allows you to do. And if you're beating into waves or you've got a wind that's not really in your favour, you're going to really struggle to make 6 knots. So if you've got 6 knots as your passage plan, then you're going to start getting stressed. You're going to be trying to make your 6 knots. You then maybe start using the engine and pushing it too much, and it just gets very stressful very quickly. Or you go off piste with your passage plan, and that's never really a good thing, because then unexpected things can happen that you've not really planned for, allowed for. So I use 4 knots for my passage plan speed. That's worked out really well. The thing I'd say about single-handed sailing is it's all about prior preparation. So the time that I spent getting the boat ready before I left has paid absolute dividends. It really has, because there's a lot of things that you can think about before you leave that just make your life easier. Passage planning has been essential every single night. I spent hours doing that, hours and hours and hours. But it's really has kept me on track. And it just it's kind of like a present for yourself the following day. You know the VHF channel when you arrive, for example. So when you get there and you've got ships and things to think about, when am I going back to the family? Immediately, as soon as I possibly can, I'm getting myself home, and I'm going to be hugging and kissing Emma and Rosella for a week solid. We're going to be like a threesome group of hugging, kissingness that's just not going to stop for about a week solid. I just can't wait. I'm dead excited. So yeah, your passage plan. You can even plan, like, for example, you'll see this in the videos, but I was even planning how I was going to moor the boat when I got there before I'd left at the other end. Like, you know, you can see the weather forecast, you can see where the wind's coming from, you can work out where the tide's going to be coming from, you can go online and find out what the visitor pontoons are, and you can have a plan of attack for your arrival before you even leave your kind of departure place. So, you know, it's not always going to work out exactly as you planned, but if you've got a plan and then you have to amend it, that's a lot easier than not having a plan in the first place. So it's really very worthwhile, and I hope that you'll find my passage plan video useful when it comes out. I'm not an expert, but I share everything that I do to kind of work out what I'm doing on a real passage. So I hope you'll find that useful. Any more questions, or have I forgotten any? Somebody's asked me things, but I don't remember really. Somebody said, what was the most bizarre thing you've had sailing? Oh, I've seen quite a few seals on this trip. That was